All right, let's welcome back to Straight Fire NFL Voice as we start to do our previews. We dig into teams, themes, all the fun stuff around the NFL. Henry McKenna, who I know pretty well, he was at the Big Lead with us. He was at Fox Sports. He's currently at Fox Sports. Where else have you been, Henry? You've been a lot of places.
Yeah, big lead. I did a number of things for USA Today, including
USA
For the
Today.
Win. I was
Mm,
at Boston.com, which is a Boston Globe media enterprise. So kind of covered a few different big media companies at
yeah.
this point.
So you were there for the good Patriots days, then the bad, and now maybe the good again. I don't know. I saw that ESPN has ranked the Patriots as having the best under 25 roster in the league and off a Super Bowl. That's pretty impressive, no?
Yeah, it's definitely a cornerstone group that if Mike Vrabel can do build on what he built in the year that we just finished. I think this team is going to be competitive for a long time. I mean, namely like Drake May, right? Like that's where it kind of all begins. If that regular season run was what he can produce at a more consistent clip, particularly in the postseason, where we saw the production, the efficiency, especially the deep ball, which he was the best deep ball thrower in the entire NFL during the regular season, like without comparison.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, he gets in the postseason, that disappears, and then the rest of his game, I think, sort of like shrivels as a result. So,
So yeah, let me
um,
stop you there, Henry. Why do you think it disappeared? Did teams go heavier with the too high and just say, "Hey, we'll let you run the ball. We're not giving up the bomb"?
I think it was a little bit of that. I think it was an increased level of difficulty. He saw some really, really good defenses. Remember, it was the Chargers, it was the Houston Texans, it was the Denver Broncos, and then it was the Seattle Seahawks. So those are, I think those were four of the best six defenses, if my memory serves me. So we're starting to see a massive uptick in quality of players, in scheme, in defensive coordinator, which the Patriots hadn't seen. I mean, that was the big narrative about them in 25, right? Was that
Yeah.
their strength of schedule was not strong, that they had this sort of cakewalk all the way to the playoffs. And then, people said that cakewalk continued in the playoffs, which to some degree I think was true, but it wasn't true of their opposing defenses, right? It was sort of that they were playing these incomplete teams that were sort of lacking on offense in terms of firepower. So, yeah, I think that's what it was. And then I think there's a fair question of whether he's just a young guy who got a little overwhelmed by the moment. I was talking
Hmm.
to um, a Patriot source about the Super Bowl and why Devon Witherspoon became the game wrecker that he was. He probably should have won the NFL, the Super Bowl MVP. All those sacks. He came on pressure at an enormous clip, which nobody expected. But once they started to see that blitz, why couldn't they figure out that it was coming for the rest of the game? And so I was talking to a Patriot source about it, and that Patriot source said, well, kind of Drake May kind of got caught napping. Like the
Hmm.
Patriots had preparations in place, certainly after they saw it the first time, but they felt like they had the preparations in place even before, going into the game.
Yeah.
That Drake May had been coached up to be prepared for that. I think in the moment, the big stage, the bright lights of the Super Bowl, you see a young kid turn a little bit into deer in headlights when looking at those pre-snap reads, those disguise coverages, and it's what made Mike McDonald the best defensive game planner in the entire NFL. Maybe the best game planner, right there with Sean McVay, just kind of
Okay.
like period, right? So that it's not to take away from McDonald, who did a great deal of disguise to get May into the place where he was deer in
Hmm.
headlights. But I think there's two to tango here when you look at a performance that was kind of as lacking as that
Yeah.
was for the Patriots.
I wonder how much of that though is the super duper soft schedule. We had Aaron Schatz on. He said it was the easiest schedule any NFL team has faced this century by a couple of metrics. Um, I don't know. It almost felt like they stepped up in class, faced, the Texans defense in the playoffs is great and may look rough. And then, of course, the Seahawks defense is, as you said, legendary. And he had a rough one. Does that play a role? And does that impact how you think he'll do this year, which his schedule is much tougher?
Yeah. it gives you maybe a taste, a little preview, a little reason for skepticism around this like absolutely boom season around Drake May. And yeah, I mean the Seahawks defense was ridiculous. I mean, if you just think about the way that Devon Witherspoon, he came out of nowhere to be, he's a cornerback and he comes out of nowhere to be blitzing and generating like 3 sacks, I think, or 2.5 sacks. I can't remember exactly the numbers there, but for him to come in and wreck the game in a way that absolutely no one expected, and then for him to continue to be unstoppable, right? That's a wrinkle that we would imagine if Bill Belichick did that. And I mean, he did
Mm,
do that all the time, right? I think this is a game plan. This was a game plan that was reminiscent of a Bill Belichick defense. And I covered Bill for like 7 years or something. And it reminded me like one for one of some of the things that I covered from Bill, the wrinkles that he would generate that were so ingenious, and they seemed to come out of nowhere, but he had planned it so carefully that it came out of planning and preparation and building up to something that was completely different than everybody else
yeah.
expected. So on the flip
Yeah.
side, go ahead.
No, I was going to say that adding AJ Brown makes some people think, okay, they're going to be right going back to the Super Bowl or thereabouts. Do you think that matters that much that you think, oh, well, AJ Brown's going to really help them a lot? Deep ball thrower for May and Brown being a great deep ball threat.
Well, the beauty of the offseason that the Patriots had isn't just AJ Brown, which is a huge one and not to be discounted. It's 1A, right? It's 100% A1 transaction, not just for the Patriots, but like short of Myles Garrett, like of the whole league, really. Um, but the other thing that they did is that they brought in Romeo Dobbs. And think about the
Mm.
offensive coordinator in New England. It's Josh McDaniels, the guy who turned Wes Welker into one of the best and at least the most prolific receivers in the league. A guy who took Julian Edelman from Kent State and turned him into one of the most crucial and sort of legendary postseason players in NFL history. So Josh McDaniels snags this slot guy, Romeo Dobbs, from an underachieving or at least an underproducing Green Bay Packers offense. I thought their offense was awesome and super efficient, but it wasn't putting up big numbers for their receivers. Josh McDaniels, kind of like Welker almost. He sees this, in his prime slot receiver, says, I think I want that guy. Elliott Wolf pulls the trigger. That's the GM in New England. And I don't think that move in itself should be discounted. And then who is the Patriots whipping boy in the Super Bowl, if not Will Campbell?
Campbell, yeah.
Everybody was ripping on left tackle Will Campbell.
Yeah.
And they're saying, oh, we're going to move Campbell to right, or excuse me, left guard. We're going to, try a new position for him because he's got short arms, and that was, the hesitancy with him in the draft process.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to move Will Campbell to left guard. The most obvious proof is they sign Elijah Vera Tucker this offseason to play left guard and support a young developing left tackle in Will Campbell. So there's a series of moves the Patriots have made to target their biggest weaknesses and stave off sort of a sense of regression. I think they saw the vulnerabilities. And Ben Johnson, another team that might, look ripe for regression, the Bears. I was talking to Ben Johnson this offseason about the potential for regression. And he brought up this expression called unstable success. And it's this thing that teams do when they're winning by close victories in almost lucky fashion, is they self-scout themselves and they say, what parts of our success are unstable, unreliable? What can't we count on to happen next year or next game? And so that's a part of his process. What I see in New England is something similar, where the Patriots clearly went out and got a top receiver, second receiver, and a guard that's going to help their left tackle succeed. I think that they're taking steps forward to stave off the regression that might have otherwise been coming for Drake May.
Yeah. I do have to ask, obviously, you cover the team closely, the Vrabel stuff. There's no way around it. This is going to be a huge talking point. The island game to begin the season. I'm assuming it's going to get brought up on the telecast. I mean, when TMZ's following this guy around and taking pictures of Vrabel and his wife, 6 months ago, nobody knew who Vrabel's wife was. Now she's getting paparazzi. That has to have some kind of impact. I mean, Vrabel's going to be in front of microphones all the time now. Do you think that come September, week 1, this is blown over, or is this going to be a lingering issue?
It's going to linger, especially if they lose. if they start losing, then it's going to actually become a driving point, I think, in the
Oh.
media, because Boston radio does not shy away from drama, and they treat the NFL much like, some people treat reality television. I mean, what is the NFL if it isn't reality television? I'm willing to admit that I cover a reality TV show. And so I think Boston radio really riffs on that, and they're not afraid to shy away from the drama. They got up in arms. They were clutching their pearls over Stephon Diggs doing drugs on a boat last summer, right? Like, and to me, a super celebrity, a guy, who's dating an even bigger super celebrity doing drugs. Like, I don't think that drugs are good. I don't get surprised when celebrities are doing drugs.
Yeah.
So, I think the NFL I mean, excuse me, I think that the Boston Sports Radio will not hesitate to go back to that issue and wonder if that issue is somehow related to the Patriots, being unfocused, having a
Mm.
regression. And it's distinctly possible, like you said, that the strength of schedule and even with the personnel moves that I brought up, do I think that they will work and help this Patriots team overcome their statistical strength of schedule? Yes, I do. Do I think there's a possibility where it could snowball and the strength of schedule gets to them and
Mm.
they start to lose, and then the outside voices, the external voices, start to talk about Vrabel's mentality and Vrabel's dishonesties and how he's addressed it with the team and all of that stuff. I think is real. I wrote a feature last season. It was extensive about how Mike Vrabel's brutal honesty is one of his driving elements of being a coach to this team. That
Oh.
he is devastatingly honest to his players. Sometimes he's a jerk. It's actually something like that like many of his former teammates, his best friends, they will quickly tell you how big of a jerk he is, but that he does it in a way that is so honest that you can't really argue with him. Um, it felt like we were dredging up a great dishonesty this offseason about Mike Vrabel, right?
Yeah.
And so if this guy, one of his strongest elements of coaching is honesty, and we're kind of starting to question the character and the dishonesties that surrounded him and the storylines about all of that. I don't know. I think that there's something tangled up there that he needs to untangle in front of the players so that they trust him and they can feel like he's being extremely honest with them, and that the
Mm.
coaching continues to work in the same way that it had in the
Yeah, it's a
past last year.
it's a tough one, especially coming off the Super Bowl. All right, pivoting away from the Patriots. You got any surprise teams out there, Henry, that you think are maybe a little disrespected in the market, shall we say?
I think the Bears probably get enough support given their strength of schedule, but I think they'll probably win the division again.
Mm.
And I think Ben Johnson is for real. That dude is, I think he's going to take the Bears to a Super Bowl in the next 3 years. The Saints are a team that I think didn't get enough love. They're in a weak division that's kind of ripe for the taking. And I think Tyler Shuck showed a level of competency that I can't imagine many people expected. I certainly did not expect. But the more I watched him, the more I appreciated his game, and the more I thought that Kellen Moore was running like a pretty tight ship there. Certainly generated a lot of momentum going into the end of the year, and then add in sort of the personnel moves that they put in um, to inject that offense with a little more explosiveness. I think they could be pretty dangerous, and people will not really see them coming.
Mm.
Um, and then I guess I think the Chiefs are people are giving them a little bit too big of a benefit of the doubt. I actually saw the clip making rounds on the herd of you
Mm.
saying this team's going to be one of the top 6, 7, 8, 9 teams in the league.
Yeah.
I
Do
don't really
you?
agree.
Oh.
No, I
Well, why
think
don't we
maybe
rattle? Wait, wait. Let's rattle off the seven who you think are definitely better.
okay.
Summarize.
So let's go Rams, Seahawks, 49ers.
Whoa, whoa, 49ers, really? Okay, that's an
Yeah,
interesting one.
I like the 49ers next year quite a bit.
Okay.
Let's go. I think okay, well, let's go for more obvious ones. Patriots, Bills are going to be threats next year. Bears, and
That's
honestly,
six.
yeah, need to pull up my playoff teams real quick. Because I don't want to
Well,
contradict
that's the
myself.
tough part because
Right.
somebody
Oh, I
might have
think
like a good team like the Lions or something, you know.
right. I think the Jaguars are going to be good again next year. I think the Eagles are going to be good again next year. And I have started to talk. Oh, the Broncos are going to be good next year.
Hmm.
So I think I've hit like 8 or 9 teams.
No, that's plenty. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think the Chargers are going to be a better team for the first 8 weeks. And so this is sort of what I'm getting at, which is like, I think maybe there's a possibility that by week 18, which is kind of how the Chiefs build anyway, they are, they have hit the point where you're projecting them to be, which is they could eventually come back to a point where they're a top 10, top 6 team. But I think they will have dug themselves into yet another substantial hole that they won't be able to get out of in a division that's going to be super competitive. The Broncos are going to be one of the best teams in the AFC, period. The Chargers are still going to be the Chargers, which means they'll disappoint somehow, but they're so talented. And Mike McDaniel is genuinely going to make a schematic difference for Justin Herbert. McDaniel's not going to be running the show. Leave that to Harbaugh. But you put the whiz kid in charge of the X's and O's, and he's going to be brilliant again. Like I really believe that offense could hum. So I don't want to overstate the Raiders because that's let's not get ahead of
Whoa,
ourselves.
whoa,
But
whoa! Raiders.
they're in the division, so
Okay.
I think they could steal a win from the Chiefs. If in that, I think they could steal a split with the Chiefs, right? So you have to think about that. It's not just who are they going to be facing, season wide. It's like, okay, well, if the division is that competitive, maybe they can't
Yeah.
steal a wild card spot because they're going to sink themselves into a hole. Why? Because that offense stinks. It was really bad last year. Patrick Mahomes could not figure out what to do with the personnel. And by simply bringing back Rashee Rice from suspension and bringing in Kenneth Walker, admittedly one of the most advanced, statistically good running backs in the league, you still see a guy like Ashton Junty, a lot of guys that are super impressive move in behind an offensive line that just stymies their explosiveness. So I'm not reassured that Kenneth Walker is suddenly going to change the identity of Andy Reid. Someone pulled up the box score of Donovan McNabb when he came back from his ACL, how Andy Reid's play calling,
Oh yeah.
quote unquote, changed. They threw three straight times with Donovan McNabb on his first snaps back from the ACL. Like I don't have any like trust that Andy Reid's identity and his play calling tendencies are going to shift just because Mahomes is ACL. And think back to when Brady came back from his ACL in 2009. It was his worst statistical season, basically aside from his rookie year, pretty much. I mean, there were only 2 years, I think, where he threw more interceptions. So we see some of the best, most dedicated, diligent, hardworking quarterbacks struggle to come back from the ACL at the level of their typical magic. I think Mahomes is going to struggle. I think Reid's going to struggle. I think the Chiefs are going to struggle. And I could see them missing the playoffs
Interesting. I'm trying to look
easy.
up. I have all my files here. They're not being called up, but like one score games. I'm looking at Denver. They were very fortunate last year in one score games. Um, Everything seemed to break their way. There was that lucky win over Washington in the rain. They got lucky against the Raiders twice. The Green Bay game where everybody got hurt. I have some questions about Denver. Let me just ask you real quick. Denver's first 6 games. So at the Chiefs on Monday Night Football, Mahomes will play. You know, the crowd's going to be juiced up. They're looking for revenge. They host Jacksonville. They probably will beat Jacksonville, but I don't know. Jacksonville, you sound like you like them. I kind of like them. Then the Broncos host the Rams. Then they go to the Niners. They go to the Chargers versus the Seahawks. That is by far the toughest 6 games to start the season. They got a new play caller who's never called plays before. I just have some questions about Nick's, the new play caller. Like, I think as I read, Henry, that Sean Payton called plays, obviously. It was tight with the OC. And then he knew Davis Webb was going to leave. So he
For Buffalo.
for Buffalo. So he got rid of his longtime buddy who was the OC. I forget how long they were together. And just put Davis Webb in there just so they didn't lose him. He's never called plays before. What happens if there's some adversity, right? And all of a sudden it's like, You know what? I'm going to take the play calling back. Well, we can't let this spiral. I have some questions about the Broncos. Do you have any concerns?
Yeah, I mean, Bo Nix is sort of at the center of the concerns,
Yeah,
more even probably than the play caller.
good point.
But so it's a question of whether, I think so. It's kind of interesting because we're talking about three different teams, the Bears, the Broncos, and the Patriots. As I would lump them all in the same category, which is like, how much can we trust this young quarterback? Not coincidentally, they're all the same draft year.
Yep.
They're all first rounders. How much can we trust this coach? How much can we trust the one score games? How much can we trust the strength of schedule? Right? They all have the same key ingredients. So you're right to bring up those first six games for the Broncos, and like, let's say they can only steal two, right? That would be a bad start for them, but reasonable. But keep in mind, they've got Arizona. They got to go back and play Kansas City. They've got Carolina, Las Vegas, Pittsburgh, Miami, New York Jets, Las Vegas.
A lot of wins there.
Um, that's probably could be seven straight wins, right? So all of a sudden, even if they do only start two and four, they could bounce back to 9-4. So,
Interesting.
I trust John Payton a great deal, maybe more than most. I don't know, but he is without a doubt one of the strongest sort of like stones against the force of like changing wins in the NFL. Like that dude just figures out how to make the most of quarterbacks. The way that he optimized Bo Nix, constantly changing what the Broncos did to help protect Bo Nix against himself,
Mm,
so that by the fourth quarter, Nix was able to actually like win them games, which I didn't really see coming for
for
Nix. I
sure.
was like one of his biggest detractors leading into like week 10, feeling like his wins were super fluky. And then it started to snowball where it was just like, oh man, like this guy actually has a level of consistency that I didn't see coming. I think Sean Payton is really steering him in a way that is impressive. I'm not going to tell you that Bo Nix is going to be a top 8 quarterback, but if you
No.
can get a quarterback winning good situations on third down and fourth quarters, winning fourth down, then you can be a playoff football team. And I think that we've seen them prove that. It would help to see him prove it again, but I'm willing to kind of like take the leap on Denver, given what we know about Sean Payton, given that I kind of trust my eyes on what he's doing with Knicks, and then given that they acquire Jalen Waddle, that's a perfect piece for
Yeah.
Sean Payton's offense.
Another toy. All right, we could wrap up, Henry. Do you have an NFC team outside of the Rams or Seahawks? And I guess we'll toss Bears in there. So outside of those three, is there someone you think that could crash the party? I would nominate Eagles, but it doesn't sound like you love them.
No, I like the Eagles.
You like the Eagles, okay?
When you say crash the party, do you mean like make a surprise Super Bowl run kind of thing?
Yeah,
Or yeah,
certainly.
I got the Eagles winning their division.
Yep.
I'm not buying the Giants just yet.
No.
Um, I think AJ Brown's departure does less than people think to hurt the Eagles. I think he was not bringing a lot of value last year on the field. I think he was actually hurting them considerably
Hmm.
off the field. I think that his by letting him go, there's probably this massive exhale in that organization. Jalen Hurts is a guy that just wins. He sacrifices statistics. He sacrifices optics. Like I am one of the biggest believers in Jalen Hurts in the league. Do you know who? You know his winning percentage is on par with Peyton Manning, on par with Aaron
Yet
Rodgers.
his job is in jeopardy, Henry, from according to what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. And you look at ESPN and there's the reports about how his leadership style was grating, about how he was true heavy handed. It's like the same stuff that people say about Aaron Rodgers, right? But
Oh,
Aaron Rodgers has this golden arm. And so people are obsessed with him. I think people just cannot wrap their heads around how good Jalen Hurts is at situational football and how much it's aesthetically unusual to us. So we can't decide that it's beautiful. It doesn't look like Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes or whoever doing this like gorgeous throw, this gorgeous whatever that
yeah.
we could post to Twitter and it can go viral. Jalen Hurts doesn't do that. It's ugly football, and I'm not just talking about the tush push. I'm talking about the way that he has some range in terms of mobility, some accuracy and passing that doesn't always attack the middle of the field, but it's really good. So I'm a staunch Jalen Hurts supporter. AJ Brown was not. And he could say all that he wants that he was, but he did not get along with this unaesthetic brand of football that won the Eagles so many games. So you move on with him. You bring in a rookie in Mekhi Lemon, who's different style of receiver, a first round pick, who is going to make an instant impact in that offense, help them build a new identity that suits Jalen Hurts. And we're going to see Nick Sirianni feel like sort of this renewed sense of creativity.
Oh,
Uh, and I think Jalen Hurts and him, they're never really going to get along. Bill Belichick and Tom Brady never got along, really. And I'm not trying to compare the two. I'm just saying that
right.
sometimes there are disharmonious relationships in buildings. So I think the Eagles are going to be fine next year. I think they're going to be better than fine. Howie Roseman's the GM of the year every year. That guy just
Really?
absolutely wins.
Yeah.
So that team's going to be good.
Largely agree. I like Hurts, man. He seems like a good dude, does things the right way. I good call on that, Henry. All right. Great stuff, my man. What's your, are you going to be doing camps and flying around? Are you doing that? Or probably I just don't know if there's value in that. Is there?
Yeah, I'm going to be, don't say things like that, Jason. Come on.
Well,
There's
I
a
mean,
lot of value in it.
well, I say that because like you can work the phones, talk to anybody, you can
Yeah,
get on
yeah.
Zoom, text messages. Obviously, there's
Well,
value
so
in going, but
how do you work the
it's
phones, right?
expensive.
You
It's
work the
expensive. Yeah.
phones by showing up at times when people want to talk to you and want to share their phone numbers. So, um, you show up before they have 10 wins on their win-loss record. So I'm going to be in New England. That's where I'm based. So I'll go to their training camp practices pretty regularly. And then I have an NFC North trip planned. So I'm going to go Minnesota, see what's happening with Kyler and
Oh, yeah.
McCarthy. I'm going to go stop through Green Bay, see one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league, Jordan Love.
Hmm.
Go check out what's going on with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams in Chicago, and then round it out with the will they, won't they, are they dead or are they renewed Lions. So
Yeah. That's a
it'll be a
great
fun
division.
tour.
Yeah, you got a good
Yeah,
division there, and that sounds awesome, man. We might have to have you back on after you do the Kyler Murray KOC stuff because everybody's penciling in Kyler as a starter. Are you
yeah.
hearing the same thing pretty much?
Yeah, I don't take seriously the idea that it's a competition. JJ McCarthy was too bad to for them to trust him again with the offense. I just can't imagine a scenario like he just wasn't running the offense when he was in there. And so no matter how competent he looked, he would have to look twice as good as Kyler for
Yeah.
KOC to actually trust him with the offense again. I don't even
Definitely.
think Justin Jefferson trusts him. Even
Oh,
Justin Jefferson, who like runs thing. He is the one of the most professional superstar receivers that like we've seen in the league in recent memory. But you just hear slipping through the cracks of his comments, Justin Jefferson indicate that the offense wasn't what it should have been, and that JJ McCarthy was kind of the reason. So
yeah.
I don't think that in good faith they can put McCarthy back in. They got Kyler at $1 million, the best discount in the NFL because they, in my mind, they made it strongly clear that he would be their starter.
Yeah. All right. Great stuff, my man. I'll talk to you soon, Henry.
Thank you. Appreciate you.